Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And as always, we're going to have a great discussion today. But our guest today is living proof that one can pursue one's passion in life and do so while making a profit as well. So please join me in welcoming Matt McWilliams to our program today. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Deb. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. I love it. We're going to have such a great discussion.
I hope so.
Let me tell folks just a little about you, and then we'll dive in. So Matt McWilliams is the author of the best-selling book, Turn Your Passions into Profits, and has worked with some of the top companies and entrepreneurs on the planet, such as Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, Tony Robbins, we all recognize that name, right? Dean Graziosi, I might not have said that right, Kim Walsh Philips, Ryan Levesque, Michael Hyatt, Claire Diaz-Ortiz, Lewis House, which we all know, Brian Tracy, Jeff Walker, and many more, not to be a name dropper. He's here to help us on our quest to turn our passion and message into a profitable and growing business. He's been through the startup phase multiple times in the past 2 decades and has built a following from scratch. Today, he lives out his passion for helping others find their purpose, their passion, their message, and their path to profitability. So again, Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Cool. Well, I always like to ask my guests how they got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit more about that.
You mentioned the book. The original opening line of the entire book was a line from the Grateful Dead song "Truckin'." What a long, strange trip it's been. I mean, nobody grew up I didn't grow up. I want to be an online marketer. I knew who Tony Robbins was at a pretty young age because, I played golf. I grew up, playing like high level athletics, played college golf at Tennessee and played professionally for a few years after. So I knew about like the personal growth niche, and I knew, guys like that. And then, a few years later, I got into sales, and I knew who Brian Tracy was. I never thought I'd work with Brian Tracy. I knew who Zig Ziglar was. I never thought I'd work with Zig's company, after he passed away. I knew who these people were, but, it wasn't like on my radar to be like in that world.
Right.
And, of course, like every kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be a professional basketball player. And then, got to 8th grade and realized I was the 13th best player on a really, really good team, which meant I was never going to play professional basketball. And I grew up, playing golf and, like I said, went to college to play golf and play professionally. And I got into this world because I was teaching golf schools with my dad. And we were doing these golf schools, very lucrative. I mean, at the age of 22, I'm teaching these golf schools. I'm making a couple $1,000s on a weekend, and I looked at my dad and I was like, well, we're getting like 4 people to come to these golf schools, 3-4 people on a weekend. What if we got 8? Could we handle 8 people? 8 people paying $2,000 each to come to these golf schools.
Right.
He was like, yeah, I think we can handle 8. He's like, 8's probably our max. We can handle 8. Next thing you know, I get online, I start doing some marketing. I'm paying $20 to acquire a $2,000 customer. Now, what we teach in the book and what, is common knowledge today is today you bring them to the website and you convert them into a subscriber. We talk all about this in chapter 4, create a lead magnet and you nurture that relationship. But this was 2002. You came into my website, you had 2 choices. Give me $2,000 or leave.
Right.
But for 10 cents a person,
yes. Most people probably went,
we converted 1 out of 200 people into a $2,000 customer. And I'll never forget it. We had an ice storm in January in North Carolina. It's one of those, the whole city shuts down.
Right.
When you get ice in North Carolina, it's just like Atlanta, the whole city shuts down. And I'm sitting there in an ice storm, and don't judge me, but I watched an Ally McBeal marathon on FX that day. And I remember I had a ding set up every time a sale was made.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning watching Ally McBeal,
Mhm.
eating whatever, probably Fruit Loops.
Mhm.
And I hear a ding and I'm like, cool, I just made
Yeah.
$2,000 sitting here doing nothing. Sitting there a couple hours later eating probably some Hot Pockets or a frozen pizza.
Mhm.
And I hear a ding. A couple hours later, I hear a ding.
And you're like,
Long story short, I heard 6 dings that day. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm splitting this money with my dad. I made
Right.
$6,000 watching Ally
Ally
McBeal
McBeal. Mhm.
during an ice storm.
Mhm.
And the thing was, I hated teaching golf, though. That was the big thing. And I'll never forget one day. The long story short is a friend of mine and I had grown up and we swore we were never going to be one of those people who played golf like we were either going to play professionally or we were never going to work in the golf industry.
Mhm.
We were never, and I'm quoting, and please don't take offense to this, I was 17 when I first said this, so I was an idiot.
Mhm.
We are never going to teach old ladies in purple sweaters how to play golf.
Mhm.
And sure enough, one day, one of the sweetest 70 some odd year old lady in a lavender sweater shows up, and I take my little 0.2 megapixel flip phone out. Again, this is 2002.
Mhm.
I take a picture of the lady and I send it to my friend and say, kill me now.
Yes.
I have done what I said I wasn't going to do.
Mhm.
And now a good female friend, and this, Deb, would reach out and say, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. You're just, it's okay.
Right.
Life is good. Think of all the things you're thankful for. But like a good male friend, Hunter responded and said, haha, sucks to be you.
Right. Uh-huh.
So that was the story of how I got into the online marketing world. And then ultimately my dad fired me because he realized I hated what I was doing and he freed me to do this. And so that was the beginning of the journey that led to, over the years, we've worked with some amazing people. We've run their affiliate programs. We've done our own stuff. I mean, we've got the book, we've got our own, products and courses. And ultimately our mission has been, to help 100,000 people make their first dollar online, because the first dollar is the hardest. There's a reason why you go into a restaurant.
It's getting started.
What's on the wall in the restaurant? The hardest dollar they made, the very first one.
Yep.
And if you can make $1, this is true for me. I spent 2 years blogging and creating content and made no money. I did my first affiliate promotion. And we'll talk about affiliate stuff, I'm sure. I made $588. Now you go, $588. That's not exactly a lot.
It was better than what you did the day before.
It could have been 78. It could have been 102. It could have been 15. The fact that it was anything other than zero, that $588 was the catalyst to everything we've done since then, having multiple 7-figure years and so on and so forth. But it started with that 588. So that's been our mission, is to help these people who they're not making any money. They have an idea, they have a message, they have a passion, something that could potentially change the world, or at least change the lives of, tens or hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, to help them monetize. And that's been my mission for the last almost 20 years now.
I love it. And your book, again, it's called Turn Your Passions into Profits. I loved it. I read it. We had you scheduled before. And so I read it then too. And partway through last night, I thought, wait a minute, I've read this, but I kept going. But it has such great tips, and it is geared more towards affiliate marketing, but the tips in it are valid for anybody. And I love that about this, because there were so many points in there, like, knowing who your avatar is. We're going to get into more detail about a lot of this stuff. Lead magnets, you mentioned that. All of these things are so critical for many businesses. And it is true. People have these great ideas for a product or a service, and then crickets, and they might be able to kind of struggle along for a while, but it doesn't take off, and it gets very discouraging. And so it is easy to say, I'm just not going to do it. Nobody loves me. And it's the sad truth is that it doesn't take a ton of work to make things work very well. And you point that out in your book. This is not rocket science, folks. These are things that we know, but we don't do them. So I love the book, because, like I said, it had so many great tips and such great information.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I mean, it's like the name might suggest. I mean, it's a passion project. A lot of people ask me, because the truth is, the book is, only about 10% of the book is about affiliate marketing. It's about so much other stuff. And a lot of people, why in the heck did you write a book?
Mm-hmm.
You're doing all this other stuff, and most people will never be in a position like Tony Robbins,
Mm-hmm.
to pay what they pay,
Right.
quite frankly, to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 0.01% of the
Mm-hmm.
people in my niche that
Mm-hmm.
can even work with us on that level.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, what about the other 99.99%?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is, like, newsflash, if you're thinking about writing a book, I'm going to let you know a little secret. Books don't make very much money.
No.
You really don't make any
Mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm.
We got a nice advance, and that's about it so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
your mom bought a copy.
oh yeah, in stores, because it's in. By the way, like, it's in stores nationwide in Barnes and Noble. So, there's that. It was more about again, the mission and the impact that it could have, and getting the message through. I mean, one of the opening lines in the book, say that, like, we're all messengers now. The world is needs messengers. Like, you're a messenger. Messengers are who are defining this new economy that we're in. You can no longer just go out and say, I've got a great product, go buy it.
Right.
That happened 1955, the first television ads. Oh, well, if GE made it, we were going to buy it.
Yeah, because we knew and we trusted anymore. GE.
Yeah. And so the entire premise of the book hinges on one belief. Really, the entire premise of my mission hinges on one belief: that the world needs your message. The world needs your message, but we're not going to wait passively or patiently for it. The world needs your message, but we're going to move on without you.
Right.
So I need your help. You have a life experience, an expertise, a system, a message, whatever it is, a passion. You have a unique, we talk about this so much in the book, and this is so important for people to get through. Like, oh, there's somebody else saying the same things, but are they a single mom? There's somebody else saying the same thing, but are they saying it with your accent? There's so many people. Oh, there's other people saying the same thing. That's a woman and you're a man. There's somebody else saying the same thing, but they're 38 and you're 65. And you have a much more, experience in the world, and you have a different perspective. There are other people who teach online marketing. Some of those people teach it where they have the flashy cars, and I'm like, yeah, I have 2 kids and I coach soccer.
Yeah, you're not going to have the flashy car because it's going to have something happen to it.
I don't want to. That's not the thing. Like, for one, you get more speeding tickets. Even if you're not speeding or barely speeding. Anyway, that's a whole different story. Like, that's not my brand. There are people teaching the same thing or similar things, but from a different perspective. Right. And nobody has the same life experiences or the same work experiences as me or you. And so there are potentially hundreds or thousands or even millions of people out there desperately waiting for you to share your message with them. The only question is, are you going to do it?
Right.
So really, that's the whole premise of the book. And then, of course, we go through all the steps to how to do that.
Right. And it's interesting because, there are those who think, oh, my message is, I'm the only one. Well, no, folks, I hate to break it to you. There is nothing unique anymore. I think, I think probably the last unique product that I can remember that made a huge splash, and this was the stupidest thing in the world, pet rocks. Remember when everybody had to buy a pet rock? And
I don't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. See, I just showed my age, right? And it was a rock, and people rushed out to buy rocks.
Yeah, Chia Pet. I do remember Chia Pet.
Yes, the Chia Pets, and all you still, if you watch late night TV, Chia. Yeah. See, but yeah, there's nothing unique anymore. And so it is about our personal perspective and story. But what do you tell people, Matt, who they say, nobody cares about me? I'm not special.
I mean, the first thing I would say is, stop comparing yourself to others. There's 2 quotes in the book. I mean, they're 2 quotes I've lived by for, a decade now. The first one is from John Acuff, says, never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. It's really easy for me to look at somebody who, when I started blogging, my beginning, 2012, I can go back to look at that website, the first version of mattmcwilliams.com. It was ugly. The graphics were terrible. And the picture of me was 4 years old. The fonts were all wrong. The design was awful. The content was mediocre at best. And I could go look at Michael Hyatt, who later became a friend and a client. And I could go look at, his website and go, gosh, so much better.
And I can never be that.
He spent a ton of money on design.
Right.
And he was able, he had the money. I didn't have the money.
He had a team.
It's easy to look at that. So never compare your beginning to someone else's middle. That's number one. The second one is from Stephen Furtick. He says, the reason why people struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. So think about this as a parent. So easy to go on Instagram and go, gosh, look at their life. Their kid's always amazing.
They're perfect.
They're perfect child. Newsflash, their kid threw a tantrum yesterday. Hey, newsflash, it's a rite of passage. Every preteen to teenager ever, no matter how perfect they look on social media, has said at some point to their parents, I hate you.
I hate you. I hate you. Right.
Every kid, I mean, I hate to say this, like your kid is not the first kid to pick his nose and eat it. All right. Your kid is not weird. You don't
post about it on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else.
Your kid is not weird. Your kid is not the first kid who was exposed to something he shouldn't have been exposed to at a young age. Your kid is not the first person to smoke cigarettes when he was 12. Your kid is not the first person to get in trouble at school. All these things. We don't see that on the highlight reels. So we get that as parents. We get that. Do we get that in our business though? No. Do we get that? Like, you're not the first person to go through these things. Everybody goes through their struggles.
Right.
Everybody, like we've been through this in our business. It's been cyclical, right? We have done stupid things. We have started off and done stupid things in the beginning. We did stupid things once we got to a point. I remember we got to a point where we're making really good money. So I went, well, let's grow fast. Well, guess what happened 6 months later? We don't have nearly as much money. All of a sudden payroll is, went from $20,000 to $75,000. And we wondered why we're making $50,000 less per month.
Right.
We haven't actually grown the business, but we're paying. I've done stupid with zeros on the end, as Dave Ramsey says. Like, I have done those things. All right. Did I post about them on social media? No,
you didn't want people to know that.
So you see the highlight reel, and it's real easy to think those things. So that's the first thing that I would say is like, when people are just thinking, I can't compete. I can't compete with Tony Robbins. Of course you can't.
Right.
Of course you can't. He's been doing it for 30 years. He's been doing it for 30 plus years. What makes you think you can compete with that right now? Right. Don't try to be him. I've been there, done that. I tried to be somebody. It wasn't that I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't. It was that I thought I was that. I'm going to try to be him. I can't compete with that. So I said, okay, what can I do that nobody else can do? And this is it.
Right. And it's interesting because from a marketing perspective, we're told, look at your competitors. What are they doing? All of those things. And that's good. I mean, you do need to know what is out there. But yeah, the second we start saying, I can't be that, and then ending, and not saying, however, after that, that's when we have lost. Because it
there's a key word. Deb, if I interrupt, yet. I can't be that yet.
Right.
I can't have that website on day one.
Right.
I can't have it yet. I can't, newsflash, you're probably not going to do $500,000 your first year.
Right.
But you're not going to do $500,000 a year yet. Oh, I can't hire that team yet. That's the key word that I always remind people is that word yet. Everything's doable. Everything's figure outable. It's just going to take some time. Right. And yeah, to a certain extent, you do have to go through, you have to take your lumps. I mean, I know for me, I have such a much greater appreciation of success considering what I've been through since, 2005, really since 2002. I have a much greater appreciation for those things. And it's like, for me, something simple, like staying in a nicer hotel than some of the other people. Like, I don't look at that and like, oh my gosh, it's because I'm better. I just look at it like, oh my gosh, it's because I got through the hard times,
right?
And wow, like I still am in awe when I walk into a new hotel and I'm like, man, this is big and nice, and just those little things like that. But it comes from that place where I remember exactly what it was like. I mean, I remember in 2002, when I was starting out, before that, I remember, like playing professional golf and being in Virginia Beach, and I'd left my only source of, anything at home on accident, my credit card. I had to find a hotel that took checks.
Ooh.
And there was one, and it's one of those weekly rental type places.
Yeah. Good
No
place.
hot water.
Mm-hmm.
No
Mm-hmm.
hot water.
And you had crawling things as roommates.
Yeah, dear God, I hope I just don't get shot. And so I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, okay, to go from that, and that's just an example. Like, you're going through it doesn't feel like that when you're going through the crap.
Right.
Get it. But trust me, when you get on the flip side, you'll be glad you went through it, because it does give you a greater appreciation for sure.
And you talk about in your book to embrace those things and use those stories, because other people hear them and go, oh, that's me, or that could have been me, or, all of those things. Because, when you look at Tony Robbins and you think he's got it all, but he didn't. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. He started out in his garage, folks. Remember that.
Most of us did.
Yeah. We started out in our spare bedrooms, our garages, basements, whatever. And so when you talk about that, that's where people go, oh, yeah, you're one of us. You're not somebody that we've got up on that pedestal. You are somebody that, because you've been in the trenches and you've gone through it, we're going to trust you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it started, McWilliams.com. This whole platform started on literally a folding table in what should have been the dining room, but we moved the dining room to another part of the house. It started on a folding table, 5:30 in the morning. I wrote till about 7, and I got to my real, real
your job that paid the bills.
Laptop on a folding table. I mean, it's so cliche, but that's how it started. It grew from there to the point where I could finally afford a real desk and a monitor. That was a big deal when I could afford a desk and a monitor. It was, a $200 desk and a $100 monitor, or whatever. And then, eventually it's like, oh my gosh, I have a nice office and multiple monitors and cool stuff. And, oh, what about starting a podcast? The setup that I have now costs like $500-600. My first microphone was $65 on Amazon. That
might have been a tough thing to know. Am I going to do it? Am I not? Ooh.
You know what? You just do it. I've recorded podcasts on my phone. I mean, they're so good now. Quite frankly.
Oh yeah. And definitely video. Holy schmoly.
Yeah. You have more. I call it the magic rectangle, right? The magic rectangle. You have more. You have the ability to shoot better quality videos than Hollywood did 12 years ago.
Right. Just 12 years ago, folks.
30 frames per second in 4K with a phone that's in your pocket, and they all store on you could shoot for days in a row, and it'll store it on your phone. You used to have to get like a company and pay them thousands of dollars to store those sizes just 10 to 15 years ago. You can run all this stuff now. What used to cost us, we had a server room, second company, my second, but the first one that went big, we had a, $25,000, $30,000 storage, facility for servers. And I remember, when the AC went out in the office building,
you're like, oh no.
Well, we literally went and got like window units and there were no windows in the server room.
Because those computers servers put out a lot of heat.
Yeah,
and therefore they overheat.
We had fans in there all the time, but we had a train of fans blowing AC in there. We were taking these big buckets of ice and putting them in there just to sit. We took a couple of mini fridges and opened them up in the server room. That's what you had to do 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to have like cloud computing. Now you can do it for like 30, 40, 50 bucks a month on Amazon, and other companies. Like it's crazy what we can do now. And so, to go back to the point, like seeing those things, those limitations you have, taking advantages of your disadvantages. I think what you were talking about, and there's a section in the book where I talk about that, like taking advantage of the things that you perceive as disadvantages. Okay. When you're small, when you're first starting out, what are some of the advantages to that? Number one, you have a more intimate relationship with your audience. You have a tight knit community. Your audience in a good way is pretty homogenous. Like when you first start out and you're speaking, you're a single mom who's talking about something related to single moms, your entire audience is single moms. So it's homogenous in a good way. And I know we want to have diversity, but sometimes in your niche, you don't.
Right.
You want your audience to be homogenous. Well, that means I can help less people. No, it means you can help the right people.
The right people.
Because suddenly if you start getting moms who aren't single moms, different problems, you suddenly start getting people saying, well, you know, I'm having issues with my spouse. Well, that's not what I'm
so sorry, but
you know, and then you start getting dads, and then you start getting people who are like, well, we want to have kids. And when your audience broadens too much, it becomes an issue. So that early on, it's so tight knit, you know, your audience starts out, they're typically first and second level connections. And you have, it's kind of like a college fraternity, again, in a good way.
Right.
They're more forgiving. They stick around.
Right.
The other thing when you're starting out is everything's an experiment. Your mistakes are tiny, you know? You know, you think about it, it's like do you want your very first speaking gig to be everybody says, I want to speak in front of a stadium. No,
right. I want to be TEDx.
Not your first one.
You want to talk before the Rotary Club.
18 people, 25 people, and you screw up there. My first, you know, speaking gigs were 20, 25 people. And I got comfortable in front of them. And I mean, I still had to take a shot of Pepto-Bismol before I'd go on with them because I was so nervous. But then all of a sudden I remember like one time I got invited and I'm like, oh, there's 1,000 people here. And it wasn't really a big deal.
Right.
Because I'd gone from 25 to 50 to 100 and so on and so forth. But my mistakes were small.
Right.
When you send an email that bombs, okay, you only got 107 people. You go, well, that sucks. You only have 107 people.
Yeah, I forgot the attachment.
You forget it bombed. So you got one person who got upset about it. You send that to 20,000 and they're less homogenous and less connected to you. 50 of them think you're a moron. Right. You know? So those are the types of things
everybody you're a moron.
Yep.
Right. You know, and I think the whole numbers game, and I, we talk about this a lot on the program. I talk about this a lot with other business associates. You know, I do a lot on social media. So people are always, what are your numbers? How many people are you connected to? And I tell them, it's a lot, but most of them are total lurkers or never even see anything I do. So I might have 3,000 Facebook friends, but there's less than 100 that I actually interact with. And so, the message that I want to put out there is for those 100. I don't care about those other 2,900 people. Did I do my math right? And, I do. And now I shouldn't say that. I do care about them, but just kind of in the, okay, if you see this, that's great. But I want to focus on those 100 because then those 100 will tell their friends. So then maybe we've got 200 and then maybe we've got 500 and then we get the right 3,000 people. I remember when Twitter first started, you could buy followers. Now you can still kind of do that, but unfortunately that's gone away. And of course, people were so caught up in I have to have 10,000 followers because my friends have 10,000 followers and yada, yada. My competitors have $10,000, right? Or followers. And of course, they were not anybody you wanted to be your follower. Typically, they weren't even in the United States. They could have cared less. They might not have even been real people. And fortunately, we have in many ways gotten past thinking, I have to have a gazillion people who follow me, and we have to have the right ones. But I want to talk about the avatar. Pete, see, I read your book. And we talk about this a lot on the program. And I want to talk about it again because it is so important. Yeah. So what is an avatar and why is it so absolutely critical to know exactly who you need to be talking to?
Yeah. I mean, the key here is intentionality. Like be intentional about who you serve. Like this is a cool thing when you're starting a business or 2 years in, 5 years in, right now, today, at this moment, you get to choose who you help.
Right.
You get to choose who your audience is. There's a line in the book and I talk about it all the time. If you try to serve everyone, you end up serving no one.
Right.
If the audience is everyone, the audience is no one.
Right.
Well, who's this book for? Well, it's for everyone. No, I'll tell you right now, if you don't want to start an online business, my book's not for you. Could you learn a couple of things? Sure. Chapters 1 and 2 are great, but the entire rest of the book is completely useless if you're not starting an online business.
Right.
If you say, well, I want to start an online business, but I want to sell widgets that appeal to everyone. You know, I want to sell a commodity item, toilet paper. Not for you. If your passion is toilet paper, and that's a weird passion, I'm going to be honest. But if it is,
people were really passionate about it when COVID started, right?
Thinking about that, but like that, this book is not for you. So I'm clear about that. It's for people who have a message, an idea, and a passion, who want to impact others and make money doing it. They want to make a living. They don't do, they want to do it as a hobby. If you want to start a hobby, the book is not for you. I mean, the word profits is in the title. You want to start a nonprofit, this book is not for you. Again, are there things you can learn, specifically chapters 1-5 and chapter 10 and probably chapter 9? Yes. But it's not for you as a role. Okay. So that's my point there. If you try to serve everyone, you end up serving no one. So what is an avatar? You know, again, this representation, a fictional representation of your audience. There's 5 steps to come up with an avatar. The first thing you got to do is you start with a name. So I love
that. I love that you name it. It's not this thing. It's got a name. It's named
Ours is Pete. Ours is Pete. Now, my audience is literally 50-50. Like if in any year, the most that my audience has ever been male is 52, and the most it's ever been female is 53%.
Yeah, right? So you're pretty even.
Down the line. There was a guy named Pete, one of our very first customers, who I said, that guy represents. And we talk about in the book, we talk about next level avatars, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's Gwen. It's a female. So you start with the name. If your audience is single moms, don't name your avatar Jim. If your audience is mostly 65 and older men, don't name your avatar Sally. You know, name it what makes sense.
Right.
Then list their values and aspirations. What are the things that they value? So I knew, like, for instance, that Pete values, you know, work-life balance. Pete doesn't want to work 80 hours a week. I knew that Pete, you know, valued time with family. Pete has, you know, 2 kids, lives in Kansas City, you know, things like that. What are their aspirations? He wants to turn a side hustle into a full-time business. He wants to go full-time with his passion. He wants to make good money, but doesn't necessarily aspire to be a multimillionaire.
Right.
You know, if he does, cool, but it's not his aspiration. He wants to be there for his kids. He wants to, you know, make all of his kids' games. I mean, Pete is effectively me. You know, what are their pain points? Okay. What are their struggles? You know, again, if it's a single mom, one of their struggles is guilt. I know this is something my mom struggled with as a single mom. She worked 3 jobs.
Right. And you know, still probably didn't think she was doing well enough for you.
Didn't. She never did, you know? Okay. So that's one example. If your audience is, you know, parents of autistic children, what is their struggle? If your audience is gardeners in cold climates, okay, what are their pain points? If your audience is business owners, specifically say small business startups with 3 or less employees, okay, what are their struggles? What are their pain points? You have got to understand and relate to your avatar's deep-seated pains. Like, these are the real pains that are hidden underneath the kind of the more obvious visible pains, right? These are the things, like I think in the book I talk about, you know, if you're in the quit smoking niche, you help people quit smoking. Okay, what's the deep-seated pain beyond just you know, well, they have an addiction, and you know that kind of makes them, you know, they're a social
their clothes smell sometimes. And it costs a lot of money. And
okay, it's the fact that one of their things is they've tried and quit so many times, and they feel like a failure. Wait, they feel like a failure just because they smoke? Like, it's sometimes you don't make that connection, right? So you have to look at that deep-seated pain that they have. Then list their info sources. You need to know, where do they get their information? Right. What books are they reading? What podcasts are they listening to? What websites are they frequenting? Who do they follow on Twitter? You need to know that stuff, obviously. And then lastly, you want to describe them demographically. So I did this, and I said, you know what? My avatar, you know, I did this when I was in my mid-30s. My avatar at that time was a 45-year-old, you know, man living in Kansas City with 2 kids. His oldest was probably about the age of my daughter now, 12, 13, 14 years old, you know, and lived in the Midwest, and he had a full-time job making $65,000 a year, a decent living at that time, but not an astronomical amount of money. You know, he wasn't a barista making, you know, $10 an hour. Right. And he wanted to do more. And he had that message. And so I started describing him demographically. Sure enough, if you look at my audience, other than being pretty even between men and women, what's the average income? About $65,000 to $80,000 in 2023, which is, you know, about the equivalent of what that was back then. What's their average age? It's about 52. 52 years old is the average age. Many of them, we've had to kind of identify this. Many of them are entering an encore career. Worked as an executive or a, you know, middle manager or something like that for 15, 20, 25 years. They're starting an encore career now.
Mhm.
They have 15, 20, 25 years of knowledge to
Mhm.
share with the world. And so
Right.
that's the avatar, that just begins to get you thinking about, okay, who am I serving? And then next level avatar, we talk about this later in the book. Later in the book, we call her Gwen.
Mhm.
Gwen was on a webinar with us, and it was kind of one of those funny stories. I was like, all right, guys, blah, blah, blah. This is not rocket science. And never forget, like, this was almost 10 years ago. Gwen said, yeah, if it was rocket science, it'd be easy for me. I'm an actual real life rocket scientist. She worked for NASA. And if you Google her name, Gwen Marasco, she's the one, she and like 2 other NASA scientists invented the system so that it would recycle and clean the urine of the astronauts so they could essentially drink
Pretty good thing to invent.
Yeah. And so she bought our
Not real sexy, but
yeah. She bought our course, no product, no problem. Then she signed up for our mastermind. Then she started buying affiliate offers. So she's what we call our next level avatar. This next level avatar is the person that basically they buy everything. They retweet all of your tweets. They're forward all of your
evangelists.
Yes, they become your best evangelists. And so we get in later in the book about into creating raving fans. And we can talk about that. But that's that next level avatar. Again, you go through the same process. Okay. What are their pain points? So the pain point, the reason they're a next level avatar is it's not that pain point they came to you with. It's the next thing. You help them solve the initial pain point. What's the next one? What's the next one?
What's the next thing keeping them awake at night?
Yep. The next thing that keeps them, in marketing, we call this the PSP path, problem solution path. So we solve the first problem with the solution. We introduce the next problem. So it's like, okay, your first problem is you're overworked. I'm just using it. I'm making this up on the fly here. You're overworked. So the solution is hire somebody to help you.
Delegate.
Well, now the next problem is, well, how do you, okay, you've hired somebody, how do you lead them? Okay. So that's a whole different thing. Leadership is a whole entirely different issue than working by yourself. Right. Okay. Now you solve that, you become a better leader. So how do you scale? How do you find more people? And eventually, like when you think way down the road, is this the problem we're having in our company is I've reached the point where I no longer, like initially it was like, I want to get all the stuff off my plate that I don't want to do. Then it was like, well, let me get all the stuff off my plate that I kind of like doing, but I'm not really good at.
Right.
Then it was like, okay, let me get all the stuff off my plate that I'm pretty good at, but I don't like, I don't really like doing. And then next thing is get the stuff off my plate that I actually really love doing, but I'm not the best at. We've now delegated stuff that like I'm really, really good at and I really, really like to do. And I remember going like, I kind of faced this dilemma, like, what the heck am I supposed to even do? Totally different things. So the things that I'm seeking out, like I no longer am in that world of like the marketing stuff and all that. I'm more in like the leadership role because my role in the company has changed. But that's the thing is your levels progress. And so you want that next level avatar to progress with you.
Yeah. And those initial avatars are still there because it is the pipeline. I mean, you still have to have them coming in order for them to progress up the chain.
There's 10 steps basically in our customer journey, for example. At any point in time, it's a pretty even split. I mean, typically there's going to be less at the level, at the step 10. Less than 100 people have ever gone to step 10.
Right. Because they've kind of filtered themselves out.
Yeah. I mean, people drop off. That's just the reality. We might have 100 people a day enter at level 1. Okay. Over the course of say a month or two, 15, 20 of them will progress to level 2. And it acts like a funnel. I mean, eventually you end up with less than 1 reaches level 10. But at any point in time, we have 20 people at level 10 and 30 at level 9 and so on, down the line, and hundreds and maybe even thousands at level 1. But yeah, I mean, that the things change. And that's why we came up with that next level avatar. It's just a more crystallized representation of who is like not our ideal person who comes in, the ideal person. Like in the
Gwen does not need what Pete needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, I know a lot of people who take it a step farther and they get little visual representations of their avatars. And they put them in front of them so that they're always writing to them, talking to them. I remember when I first started doing webinars that were completely, where you did not see the participants. And so basically I'm sitting here talking to myself. Now, yes, I do like to talk, but talking to myself is an issue. And so I got, little Barbie dolls that had their little briefcase, had their suit on. I mean, all of those things. And that was who then I was talking to. Now, it wouldn't have made sense for me to talk to a teddy bear because that wasn't, but yeah, I had that actual physical representation of who I was talking to. And I don't know, they're lost somewhere here in the office. I still have them somewhere, but yeah, it just helped because then I wasn't just talking to myself. Now maybe that's a little psychotic that I was talking to the dolls, but it worked.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it takes. Like, I mean, for me, it's just easy for me to visualize. That's one of the reasons I love now with like all of our trainings, we do them, we ask like, hey, turn your video on if you're comfortable with that.
Right. We want to see your faces.
I only need to, I can only see about 8 of them at the same time anyway. Right. So all 8 of them have their video on. It hides the ones that don't. So I see 8 people. And so when I make, it's like there's a friend of mine, he's a comedian. And he was talking about, early on in COVID, it was just really hard because there is that slight delay and, just everybody's, operating at like a different speed and things like that. And he said it was really hard to do comedy, and get the same reactions. So, they created a studio that allowed him to be able to hear people laugh and to see them bigger like he would, on stage. And he said, now that made all the difference, in the vibe. And so, yeah, it was, I know just even having 8 people there, like when I'm presenting, if I make a little quip and I think it's funny and I have nobody to react, it's like,
yeah. Did the tree fall in the woods? Yeah.
If I see a couple of people laughing, it gets me going. And when I see people like, I mean, I gave a keynote probably about 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. And I ended up I'll tell the story in a moment, actually, probably if we get to it. But I told this story about this lady and long story short is I made people cry. Like it was a very emotional story. And you see in the chat, people are like, I'm crying or, wow, or thank you, things like that. And that's one thing.
That's nice.
When I see their reaction, it totally changes the dynamics of the presentation.
Right. Yeah. When we know that there's a real person that is on the receiving end, it's totally different. Plus then we're going to tailor what we're writing, saying not for our ears to hear, but for them. And I think that's one of the things that we see so many people make the mistakes on is when they're writing their content, when they're doing whatever, they're writing it for themselves. I think this is the greatest thing in the world because yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
And then you find out that joke wasn't funny or whatever it is. I mean, you might have thought that, that feature was the greatest thing in the world. And the thing that you didn't think much about is really what people love. And so, yeah, when you keep in mind who your audience is, you're going to be successful, or at least get closer to it. Well, Matt, I want to talk to you about something that hit home for me in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it was something that, and it's one of those, you have to do, but do we do it? No. One of those type of things, right? In your book, you talk a lot about having your email list and how to start it and all of those things. And the reason it hit home for me was I am, social media oriented. I do a lot of everything I do on social media, and I don't collect email addresses. And most people are like, yeah, whatever, that's great. Several weeks ago, I did something stupid. I clicked a wrong link and my Facebook profile was taken over. It was hacked. It was completely hacked. I mean, this is not cloned. I no longer had access to my Facebook, which meant I had no access to my groups, my pages, anything. Long story short, I got it worked out. Facebook and I, we got it worked out. Everything's back hunky dory. But of course, during that time frame, my thought was, I've lost all of those people.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was really the sad thing about it. And so then I thought, well, not only did I lose them, I'm not helping them. I'm not, all of these things. And that was terribly upsetting to me because I had worked so hard to build those audiences, those raving fans. And I had no access to them. And so of course the first lesson here, folks, is never, ever, 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 ever do that. Don't click those links that you really shouldn't be clicking, because that really was what I did. But never rely on somebody else's toy to be yours. I mean, the people who tell me, oh, I don't have a website anymore because I have a Facebook business page. No. So talk to us about why it is so absolutely critical, and to have your own contacts, and then how to kind of, how do you build those lists?
Yeah, we'll talk about the why and the how. I mean, the first reason is the one you just named. You own the connection versus renting it. You do not own your Facebook contacts. You do not own your LinkedIn contacts, your Twitter followers. You're one algorithm away. I have had a Facebook account completely shut down, completely inaccessible. I have had my LinkedIn profile that I had, let me think, I got it in 2006. I'd had it for 16 years, never did anything wrong. An algorithm shut it down. They said I posted something. I'm like, I didn't post anything. I literally don't post. I connect with people. That's all. How did I do something wrong? That's how close you are to losing everything. Now, there's
one click.
Side note, like, always download your contacts from LinkedIn. I was able to, but that's a whole different.
Yes, LinkedIn does give you that ability.
I'm only going to get 20 or 30% of them back.
Right.
Facebook doesn't even let you do that. Twitter doesn't let you do that. You are renting versus owning. You want to own your connections. You have to own your connections, and you have to own your home. This is the difference. Okay. When you rent, what can you do when you rent? When you rent an apartment or a house, you can't paint, you can't decorate. They cannot renew your lease.
Right.
Think about it that way. Oh, well, we can just, they're not going to kick me out. Well, they can't kick you out, but they can kick you out in 3.5 months when the lease renews, because they don't want to renew it. They can raise the rent. They can start charging. Hi, Twitter. I have nothing wrong with that. I think what Twitter's doing is actually really smart. But imagine all of a sudden you went going, it was free and now I got to pay. That's different. They can do things like that. Your own site, your own home, that doesn't happen. Own your home. Okay. Number two, deeper connection with your audience. You are in the most intimate place they are, their inbox. People follow on Facebook and follow on Twitter like they're giving away candy, right?
Right. Oh yeah, we click those buttons
email address
all the time.
Less so. So once you have it, it's a deeper connection. Third, you are guaranteed to be seen. All right. So most people don't realize this. Your Facebook post, if you're lucky, 5% of your followers will see it. That's see it, not engage.
Right. It goes now, in front of them.
You're going to get a 25 to 30% open rate on your emails. No, you'll get a 30 to 40% seen rate on your emails.
Right.
You will typically get somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% open rates. That means 20 to 25%, 1 out of 4 people will at least engage in some form with the content. That's astronomically higher. The fourth thing is you can segment your messaging. So I'll give you a great example. We have on our list right now, I mentioned earlier, we've got people at 10 different stages. Some content is universal to all 10 stages.
Right.
Some content is specific to groups, stages 8 through 10. Some is for 1 through 4. Some is for 3 through 7. We will only send that content to them. You can't do that on social media. You cannot tell Facebook, hey, I only want you to show this to, unless you pay.
Right. Yeah, that's it. That's the catch. You can pay.
With email, you totally can. And then the fifth one, this is a big one, you can allow them to opt out of campaigns.
Right.
So here's a great example. We are running a promo in a couple of weeks that is really geared towards levels 6 through 10, but it's sort of for 1 through 5. I'm just simplifying this. It's not exactly how we do it, but it's sort of for them. So here's what we do. We send it to everyone. And at the very beginning of the email, we say, hey, are you interested in blank?
Right. Then they know, read more or not.
And we will not send you another email about this. We're going to, and I'll say, I plan on sending a bunch of emails about this workshop over the next couple of weeks. If you receive them, click here. Only about 2% of people will click that. but that's 2% of people that our two choices
really want it.
Our on social media, their two choices are this. Number one, it's for them, or number two, gosh, I have to keep getting these posts for the next 2 weeks when they're not interesting to me. Yeah. With email, they click this, it just removes them. Which goes back to what we talked about over time. As they remove themselves from campaigns, we also put them into segments. Right. We know that if they click that, if they don't click it and they click to this, they might move up a notch on our, like we have you at basically a level 4, but based on this,
wow, you're actually a 6.
Yeah. But if they click the no, we go, if they click that no, and they click on the next one and the next one and the next one, and the way they engage, we get smart with that. So you're smarter with it. The best time to start building your email list is the day you start your website. The second best time, the old proverb, what is it? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time now. The best time to start your email list is the day you release your website. The second best time is right now.
Yes.
So, start it. So how do we do that? All right. We have to have a lead magnet. All right. You have to have a lead magnet. We
give them a reason.
Yeah, we know what a lead magnet is. It's any reason why people basically give up their email address, why they subscribe to somebody's list. But a lot of people make a huge mistake with their lead magnets, and they think they have to be super fancy, in-depth. They have to take days or weeks to create. This is what step 4 in the book is all about, is basically lead magnets. But here's the thing. This is the key. If you get nothing else from this whole episode, your lead magnet, this is all a lead magnet is. It addresses an immediate or pressing need or want in your target audience. All right. That's it. It does not have to be a comprehensive guide. It does not have to be a detailed manual. It doesn't have to solve every problem your avatar could possibly face. Doesn't need 12 examples, 16 templates. Doesn't need, it really, I shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to create, actually. Right. We have, we have basically, we call it the 2 to 3 hour rule. Like it should not take more than 2 to 3 hours to think of, plan, and create your lead magnet. And it should take a few minutes to consume. In fact, this thing we found is the most elaborate lead magnets are often the worst lead magnets because they're overwhelming, right? People are like, oh my gosh, it's a 38-page document. It takes hours to consume, even longer.
I had 5 minutes to give you.
And so more often than not, they are never consumed. They're never acted upon. And your new subscriber has a bad first impression.
Right. And they're never going to ask you again for something.
You want people to want it because it addresses that immediate or pressing need or want. And you want to give them a quick win. So the easiest way to think about this is like, think of it as a solution to pain. If your friend came to you and said, hey, Deb, oh my gosh, my back is hurting. It's like I'm going through right now. I have I have rotator cuff tendonitis. And it's extremely painful. They've finally figured out what it was after 3 weeks. And they've got me on so many steroids right now to try to, get it down. And hopefully it'll be better in the next few weeks. But I'm doing all this stuff. And here's the deal. They gave me the list of the different stretches and exercises that I need to do. If that is all they had given me and said, great, it'll be better in 6 weeks, I would say, you suck. This is terrible. That's not a lead magnet. Give me medication that will hopefully at least make it a little bit better right now.
Right.
They want an ibuprofen. They want a Tylenol. They want to feel better right now.
They want the quick fix.
Here's the thing. Now that I have those steroids and it's made it where I can sleep at night and not stay up all night with shoulder pain, and they've made it where the pain, like I can go like this and not go, oh gosh,
right.
I can do the stretches.
Right. So you can go to part 2.
Yep. I can go to part 2. And in our case, we're going to give them the free quick solution. And then the other stuff will be potentially paid. My dad, I mentioned my dad, he was a golf instructor, had the ultimate lead magnet. My dad passed away 18 years ago. My dad never got on the internet a day in his life, never had a cell phone, never owned a computer, had the best lead magnet I've ever seen. And for those of you who played golf, you can picture this easier. But my dad would go to the driving range. My dad was a golf instructor. And he would go to the driving range and he would look for somebody in pain. And I don't mean pain like my back hurts. I mean like they'd hit a ball and go, they hit another, and they're club on the ground. He'd say, hey, can I help you for a few minutes? I'm the local instructor. Well, that gives authority. And they'd say yes. And he'd find one thing, one tip.
Yeah. You didn't line up your hips right.
One solution to pain that would help them. And he'd watch them for 5 minutes and they'd hit a ball and they'd go, oh my gosh, that's the best ball I've hit in months. How do I sign up for more lessons? And he would sell them $1,000 golf instruction package. That's all a lead magnet is. If he had come to them and said, do you want to buy golf lessons? They'd say no.
Yeah. Or if he said, you need to do this and this and this and this and this and this.
one tip, that one solution to pain. So how do we create a lead magnet that converts? Right? This is the key. Number one, you define the one problem, not 7 problems, not the 10 problems, not the 2 problems. Define the one problem. Oh, but my audience has 3 different problems. That's 3 different lead magnets. Start with what's the biggest problem they have. Number 2, solve that one problem. All right. That's it. That is how you do it. So you provide a quick win for the avatar. They're easy to deliver. They solve a specific pain point. They take less than 3 hours to create and to outline and create. So I walk through how to create each of these in the book, but I'm going to give you the 5 biggest ones. These are the 5 best converting lead magnets. Number 1, checklists and cheat sheets. All right. So it's literally a checklist. These are, you'll notice as I go through these, like, oh my gosh, I already have some of these. I use them myself. Oh, you have a travel blog? How about a packing list? How about an international packing list? Oh, how about a packing list for people with allergies? I don't know, or packing list for warm climates, packing list for a ski trip, packing list for a beach trip, packing list if you're going to, wherever. Checklist and cheat sheets, right? Templates and swipe copy is number 2. Template or swipe. We have one of our best lead magnets is, hey, do you want to know my number 1 email for recruiting affiliates? Go grab it. I'm going to give you the swipe copy. You can copy and paste the email and edit it to fit. Number 3, toolkits. So people want to know what you use. Here's my photography toolkit. Here's my toolkit for setting up great websites, whatever it is. The cool thing about these is you can actually make money from affiliate links. So you can get a new subscriber and immediately if they go, oh, here's my podcasting toolkit. If they go buy this microphone and this thing, I make like $50 right away. Prompts. This is number 4, prompts. So starters, questions, ideas. These are great for writers. These are great for one of my friends is in the parenting niche, and she was also a client, and we helped her out. And it was basically it was like 5 prompts to start a conversation with your teenager. Right? Because talking to teenagers is hard. Right. Going back to the swipe copy, a script. She created one. It was 3 scripts to talk to your kids about sex. It's a heck of a I was like, yeah, I would like that, please.
Yeah, sign me up.
And then the 5th one is spreadsheets. So basically these are templates, things like budgets, timelines, expense trackers, workout trackers. We have one that's so simple. It's a spreadsheet. You go, whoa, wow, that's a really complicated lead magnet. Well, it took us weeks to create. We created it for ourselves. The value to the customer, even though it's free, the value to the subscriber is so awesome. Here's what they do. They go to the bottom of the spreadsheet. They type in their launch date. And it fills in.
It goes boogity, boogity, boogity.
Fills those in for how to communicate with your affiliates. When do you communicate this to your affiliate? Boom, it just tells you. You put in one date, you type in one number, boom, it fills it in. And then the last thing you got to do is you got to name your lead magnet. You've got to name your lead magnet. And the thing is, the lead magnet name has to focus on the results. Right. This is key, Deb. It has to focus on the results. Personally, I've created over 75 lead magnets in my life. I've probably helped clients with thousands and thousands. We found a very simple formula. It's called number, noun, that verb results. Okay. So when I give you examples, you'll see this. Right. Number. This number should be 3, 5, 7, or 10. No other numbers. Do not do 8. What if I have 8, Matt? Then delete one. Right. Call it 7. And if you really want to give them the 8, call it a bonus. Well, I only have 9. Same thing. You either need to get to 10
or drop to 7
and offer those as a bonus, and call it 7 and then have 2 bonuses. So 3, 5, 7, and 10. Number, noun, that verb results. So 5 emails that double your sales. Number, 5 emails, noun, that verb will double what? The result is your sales. 7 foods that burn fat while you sleep. This is one I actually created for a client that's, done unbelievable. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It was 10 prayers that unlock heaven on earth. He was like, telling me what it is. I was like, here's the name. He's like, oh, that's it. Let me try it. Yeah. Work like a charm. 3 free tools to triple your affiliate income. Like, these are examples. Number, noun, that verb results. That's the formula for a lead magnet that converts. Right.
I love it. And we overthink and we overdo. That's the thing. And so then, of course, what happens is we don't do it at all because we've overthought and overdone and convinced ourselves, oh my God, it's never going to be right or perfect. Again, if it's not, work on it, make it better. Well, Matt, this has been absolutely wonderful. And we've only got a couple minutes left. We didn't even talk about affiliate marketing. And I really want to get into that because I think it is something that, as you mentioned in your book, when you're just starting out, it's a great way to start making money. You mentioned, your $549 or whatever first one that you made, that was $549 you didn't have 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
And so I think affiliate marketing is such a great thing that we need to talk about because you can do it with everything. I mean, it's not just Amazon books or, all of those things. There's affiliates for everything. And so I really want to have you back to talk about that. But until then, how do people find you and what are the services that you provide? And of course, we want them to buy your book, and we will have an affiliate link in the notes.
Yeah. So the first place to go to grab the book, go to passionsintoprofitsbook.com
Right.
/Deb.
Okay.
Passionsintoprofitsbook.com / power hour. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm going to just say it like 6 times. Passionsintoprofitsbook.com / power hour. That's the best place to grab it. I mean, you can grab it in Barnes and Noble. It's in stores. It's on Amazon. But if you grab it there, you'll be able to redeem, and there's almost $600 in extra bonuses that you get.
I know. Oh my gosh. All of this stuff. That is so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, you can go grab, if you grab it in stores, if you're in a Barnes and Noble and you're like, you see the book, grab it there. And then you go to that website and you can redeem your receipt and get those bonuses. But that's the best place to grab it. passionsintoprofitsbook.com / power hour. Otherwise, just check us out, mattmcwilliams.com. There'll be links there. They'll point you in the right direction. So you can kind of tell us like, hey, I need to learn how to start monetizing with affiliate marketing, or I want to grow an affiliate program. I want to, do whatever it is that you want to do that's going to be best for you. All of that, you can get right there.
Perfect. I love it. And it's back to what we said at the very start, folks. This is not, except for that one person, rocket science. It's things that we even know. We know we should be doing, but we don't do it, or we think, it's not important. It is, like having your own email list. Hello, I found out, is very important. And so, I encourage you, get the book, check out Matt's information because it is such fabulous, and I promise we'll have him on again. But Matt, until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
I will share a quick story with you. I think a lot of times when we're getting into this online marketing world, we talked earlier, like, okay, avatars and how do I know my niche? I know you mentioned before we went live, you got the leadership, commitment from step 2 printed out. And a lot of that just talks about, committing to being a leader. That's step 2 in the book. Like we see, a lot of misconceptions about leadership, and, we see that, we know the leadership's not easy. It's scary. It's hard. It's overwhelming. Sometimes like we just feel like we're inadequate to be leaders. Perfectly understandable. Those responses are perfectly understandable. They're normal responses to leadership, but leadership is ultimately a choice. And I write in the book, like, your followers need you to lead them. They need you to lead them. Somebody somewhere out there right now needs you to be their leader. In fact, there are potentially millions of people who are willing for you to guide them. And I talk about a lady in the book. I know know the story, Deb, and this is that story I shared earlier in that keynote. But it kind of just perfectly encapsulates what leadership and building a platform around your message is all about. She was interviewing for our mastermind. The final step in our mastermind qualification process is that I talk to you for about 15 minutes and like, do you, can you laugh at yourself? Can you be made fun of? Do you fit in with our mastermind? Right. And I'm talking to her and she's like, oh my gosh, Matt, I'm in this mastermind. She's like, I want to be a part of this. I want to grow my business. She's like, but I only have one question. She's like, I'm like, what? She said, I don't know that I'm the right person to do this. I said, why not? She's like, well, she has 2 kids with autism and she wants to help parents of autistic children. And she's like, but I don't have letters behind my name. I don't wear a white coat. I didn't go to Columbia or Harvard or, Oxford. I dropped out of community college, And I said, but you told me you have 2 kids with autism. Yeah. And what you told me is you've raised them pretty well. They're pretty well adjusted. They're doing pretty well in the world. She said, well, they're doing all right. Yeah. I said, let me ask you something. And I remember when I asked this question, I immediately regretted it, thinking, oh, crap, did I cross the line? I said, have you ever thought about killing your children? She said, without missing a beat, she goes, every day. And I don't mean that she's literally thinking up ways to like drown her children, and like actually, but she's like, it's hard sometimes, Matt. It's hard. It's really hard. I said, but you haven't. She's like, well, yeah. I said, you haven't. You've actually, they're doing great. She said, yeah. And I said, no matter what letters you have behind your name, no white coat, no degree, no credentials can ever touch the fact that you've raised two amazing children and you can teach others how to do that. I said, just do that. Just talk about your life and your experience. And that's what she went on to do. And this is not in the book. That part is. That's where the story leaves off in the book, because we approved the manuscript. And then a couple months later, she reached out to me and she said, just want to let you know. She said, go check out this video. I did. It's a video of her teaching parents who have autistic children how to travel. What I did not know is that's a nightmare for parents of autistic children, because they think their kid's going to act out. You're taking a kid whose life is built on routine, and you're waking them up early, keeping them up late, putting them on a metal tube and putting them at 35,000 miles up in the air, or feet up in the air. And I'm like I panic when I get on an airplane. Like, I don't like it, and how do these kids react? And so then people are going to be staring at them, and they're going to be judging her as a parent, and they're going to mutter, and they're going to talk to themselves. And then she's, then that stress manifests itself on the child, and it becomes a vicious cycle. She recorded a video teaching people how to do this. She has a YouTube channel with over 10,000 subscribers, an email list that's got a few thousand people on it already. And this video had something like 200,000 views. And one of the comments toward the top of the video at that time was a lady that said, I have an autistic child, and we haven't left our county in 4 years because I've been terrified to travel. I watched your video. I talked to my husband. We just booked a flight to Hawaii. And I'm thinking, okay, that's what leadership is. Not the letters, not the degrees, not the credentials, just sharing her story of what she's learned. She doesn't know the psychology of why what she does works. She doesn't know the medication that your child should be on or any of that stuff. She shared her experience, her life experience, and impacted potentially hundreds of thousands of people. And that's all that leadership is.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to talk to you again. I think we're going to have such a great follow-up discussion. I have been having a great talk with Matt McWilliams, the author of Turn Your Passions into Profits. And I'm Deb Creer. Until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.